will help achieve success, but sometimes you do need a little bit of luck, you know. And some of the greatest entrepreneurs that I know, for instance, Larry Page and Sergey Brin that started Google, when they started Google, they put in an amazing amount of hard work. They had a lot of innovation, a lot of new algorithms that they brought to search. But they also acknowledged that a little bit of luck was important. So on Google, how many of you see this "I'm feeling lucky" button? Yeah. That's still up there to this day, you know, and if you click that button, it will, instead of giving you the search result page, it will basically just take you to the result of what would be the first result on the page, and it's just an acknowledgement that they believe it. And of course, I don't think I would be surprised if Google ever takes that off now, because you imagine what the press would read. Oh, Google doesn't feel lucky now anymore. But you know, it's just an acknowledgement that a little bit of luck is important. But you know, you shouldn't rely on luck either. There's another saying that says that, you know, the harder that I work, the luckier that I get, and I think that there's some truth to that as well. So. Let me back up a second though and ask, you know, what is an entrepreneur? You know, there might be one definition of entrepreneur that says, well, an entrepreneur is someone who wants to make money. How many people believe this is true? Good, we've got a smarter audience than I thought. That's great. So you know, making money is important. It's extremely important, especially to your investors. But one thing to keep in mind is that if you just focus on the money, then very often you may not end up accomplishing all the goals that you might like. So let me propose a slightly different way to think about entrepreneurship and think about this. So instead of thinking about an entrepreneur as somebody that wants to make money, let's think again. Let's think a little bit about what an entrepreneur might want to do and how to define it. Instead, let's look at an entrepreneur as somebody that wants to bring value to society and bring value to the world. And this is an important distinction, because if you think about what money is, right? Money, to an extent, is an artificial and imperfect measure of value exchange, right? So the first thing to focus on is actually the value. What do I mean by value? I mean helping solve other people's problems, right? So if you help people solve people's problems, there's value in that. And if you can bring bring solutions to people, then they very well might be very happy to pay you. I mean, think about yourself as a consumer, right? Let's say that you like a pair of jeans, right? The pair of jeans, well, it definitely serves a functional purpose, right? You need clothing, right? But there's all kinds of different styles, and it might bring you happiness in other ways, and you pay for that value. If you think about what you pay for a pair of jeans versus what it actually costs to make that pair of jeans, there's a very big gap. Although the clothing manufacturers might have you believe otherwise, but to an extent, they're helping you solve a problem, and you're more than happy to pay for the solutions to those problems. So, as an entrepreneur, think about how you can bring value to society. Think about how you can help people solve their problems. Focus on other people's needs. Now, of course, you need to build a sustainable business if you're an entrepreneur, and this applies not only if you are a kind of for-profit business, but even if you happen to be, say, a social entrepreneur that's, say, starting a nonprofit, right? You need to bring value to society in a monetizable way, right? So your customers, need to pay you, or various services need to get paid for somehow. But if you think about why that's important, it's not just so the entrepreneur or the employees or whatnot can run off with the money. Instead, another way to think about this is that it's important to basically build revenue streams such that that revenue can be used by the business to actually help a larger set of people. And if you get into this loop of helping solve people's problems, get revenue for it, invest a large part of that revenue into helping solve more people's problems, you create a positive feedback loop which will result in that business or that nonprofit growing, being able to impact and influence and help many, many more people. So that's one way to think about, well, why is revenue important and how should it be used? So at the end of the day, though, I should clearly acknowledge that when an entrepreneur brings value to society, they can, of course, benefit themselves personally, but I would look at first helping solve the problems for customers, helping solve the problems in society, and the cash is kind of the after effect, right? It's kind of like when you're going to school, right? If you just focused on the grade, you might not always get where you want. But if you focus on your interests and learning the topic and whatnot, the grades will just follow, right? And the same thing happens in business with revenue. So, what are some now concrete steps that you can follow to become an entrepreneur if this is a direction you'd like to go in? Well, the first thing I'd say is something that I mentioned before. You need to first find your passion, find what you're excited about, think about if there's something that you could do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, besides like being at the beach or whatnot. Figure out what that is and start there. The second thing is, I don't know how many of you have read Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Some of the folks in the room. One of the habits and one of the great things in that book is to begin with the end in mind. So think about when you're on your deathbed, what would you like to say that you brought to the world? And what would you like other people to say about you? Start there. And that actually takes a lot of thinking. Go on a 2-week vacation and think about that, and work backwards. Because that will work it back to, well, what do you need to be doing now in order to get there by the time that you're on your deathbed? Hopefully your deathbed's far out, right? So find your passion, begin with the end in mind, and then start taking the right steps right now. Once you've done that, another question you need to answer for yourself is you need to know yourself. You need to know yourself very well. I haven't met anybody in this world that's perfect, and it turns out that most people have strengths and limitations, and some people know their strengths and limitations better than others. But you need to deeply understand that before you start a business, before you get married, all these kinds of things, right? Because once you know yourself and know your strengths and limitations, what you can do is you can use those strengths and limitations to figure out what kind of people should I work with and associate with in order to say compensate for my limitations, right? In my particular case, I happen to be a very scientific, analytical engineering type, and I love building technology. And sure, I have a good amount of business savviness. But when co-founding Dacient, I thought it would be really important to have somebody that focuses strictly on the business side. And so my colleague Amit Ranadive got MBA from Berkeley and spent quite a few years working at McKinsey, and so the partnership there is very important. In addition, I have a third co-founder named Sharik Rizvi, who happens to be very good in a different technology area than I am. I'm very good with security. He's very good with web servers, and in order to solve web security problems, the two of us need to come together. So think about what kind of people do you need to complement yourself once you understand your own strengths and limitations. Let's see. Once you've done that, you can go forward with finding co-founders and business partners, and they'll help you. You can work together as a team to get your business off the ground. I'd say before you start any kind of business, spend 6 to 8 months just working together, shooting the breeze, doing some random project, just to see how it kind of works out. It's kind of like a dating